best that they could actually be.
And CEO of Kenya cannot pretend that they have not done their homework about the state of the nation before you open your mouth and make promises. That then becomes what you call politics bonoko. Politics bonoko. And that is what we have clearly seen. Siti, you're making a face.
Yes, I'm wondering, bonoko, what language is this?
Bonoko is Sheng.
Okay.
You don't know it?
Bro, I have absolutely no idea who bonoko is.
Bonoko is fake. The connotation is fake. This is fake politics. You seduce the public, dangling carrots that you know you will never deliver. And that is the situation we are in.
Is it, Jimmy? Look, we've heard, in terms of explanation that has been given, that this is what the intent was. So maybe when I was telling you that I was going to do certain things, my intent wholeheartedly was to do so. Now, getting into the boat, I then realized that there are many other factors that would then influence what it is that I wanted to do, of which I was unaware of before I got into the boat. Is that the same kind of scenario we'll be looking at here, or is it really?
No, it isn't. Not at all. Because our problems are not of our own making. They are of our making. It's not an international making. It's not an arena that is outside of us. That is only a small part. The problems we have were created primarily over the last 10 years, of which the current president was well aware of. You cannot feign ignorance. And if you're going for the top job, the one thing you must do is do some homework. You can't feign ignorance that maybe I was out of the system and so on, so I didn't know what was going on. You were here in Kenya like all of us. You have been in government. You have done an assessment of your liabilities. You've done an assessment of your credit balance. You should have, before you make promises. Just like a company. I know what the right side of my book says and the left side. My liabilities and my assets. And the problem we're having is that that was not done. In fact, it was ignored, like it's irrelevant. Let's just go and induce the people with the bonoko talk, right? So that when they consume it, they will say, yes, now we have a narrative called hustler versus dynasty. The problem in this country is the liability are dynasties. That is the way it was put. They're the liability, right? So we remove them and life will be better, right? We are going to take money from them under this bottom-up scheme. We're going to take money from them and bring it down to you. But nobody could quite show you how this path is to be done. It was simplified into some sort of ideology, right, of haves versus have-nots. Now, the greatest thing about that campaign, though, and I must say it, is that we are here today discussing ideological economic agendas and political ones. This is no longer the past where Kenyans didn't care about this deep an issue, even about the economy, right? We are graduating, we are reforming, and that we must pat ourselves on the back for. It's a very positive thing, because this is how the world runs. You debate issues, real issues, right? Now Kenyans are understanding what an exchange rate loss means. When they see the shilling coming down, what it means to their lives. They're understanding something called interest rate. They're understanding it, right? They're understanding hii mafuta, kibadilika, inaharibu maisha yetu. They're understanding it. And they're concentrating on it because of the pain. And the awareness, right, that this government got in promising us honey. And what we've gotten in return within 1 year is a very different template. Right? It's bitterness and pain.
There are many
There's
things.
No honey.
There are many things. Maybe it's also the government has opened the door for us to see what exactly has been happening in governance, in our governance of the country for many years.
You know, you can say that in part. And as I said earlier in previous interviews here, I was not about to criticize William Samoei Ruto. I gave him a year. Because that's how you know what a government template is going to be. Gave him a year to see what path he's going to take. Gave him until his budget. He brought a new budget. We said the problem, and continually advertised it, the problem is that most of our money is going to paying debts. 70-80% is going to paying debts.
Yep.
You're not going to solve it by raising taxes on the same people. He says he's following Kibaki. Kibaki expanded what you call the tax base. He didn't raise tax for us. He just made sure more people had income that he could tax, but he was taxing the same. He expanded the economies. He removed the barriers to development. So more and more of us, right, came into the formal economy. This template is to take the same donkey as, same. We have not even expanded to 2 or 3 donkeys, and milk us more and dry, finish us, right, to deal with this problem called debt. Now, the tragedy, I can tell you, is that he is doing the same thing they have been criticizing over the last 10 years. We talked about legality of debt. Parliament, for your information, and this is information he is aware of, because I myself made sure he knows. Parliament, in its appropriation bill this year, passed external and foreign loans to be taken of 313 billion shillings. A month later, in what is gazetted by the National Treasury as the Exchequer, Statement of Exchequer, the National Treasury states, puts there categorically, external loans and grants, 870 billion shillings. Domestic loans, 693 billion shillings. Where did Parliament approve any of that?
That totals to about
1.6 trillion
in debt.
in debt. And this is the Bonoko politics I'm talking about. You say on the one hand, we are raising taxes, we are not going to borrow. And you borrow an amount that has never been borrowed before. So don't blame the last 10 years. In the last year, Uhuru's borrowings were just under 800 billion. You have gone double what Uhuru did in the last 1 year. So you cannot blame the past. You are continuing the collapse of our economy on a template of illegality. I want you to know that in the budget, CT, the total projects that have been listed so-called for development are 807 billion. So you're borrowing 870 billion external loans and grants over and above the projects. You are borrowing, right, over and above what you have set aside in the budget of 416 billion
for development.
For development as tax revenue towards development, towards that 807. They are doing the same thing. In fact, worse.
Why?
They are doubling our problem.
Why?
Tripling our problem. Hastening our collapse. And that's what we are now feeling. That's why you're feeling this pain so evidently, especially since September. It's just like suddenly the place is drying up. They've sapped all the money. They're taking all the money from us. What money do we have for circulation? And they themselves are taking it out. They're taking it out to debt, odious debt that we kept talking about. And you're never going to solve this problem this way. Never.
Jimmy, do I hear you to be saying that all these monies, this mind-boggling amounts that we're referring to are actually being borrowed to pay debt.
You see, I can't see anything else. It's not coming back to us. The same budget appropriation said that this year we are going to pay debts of 1.652 trillion.
Yes.
The Gazette notice that I'm referring to, which came out a month later in July, said that amount has changed to 1.751 trillion. Right? The minister, CS Finance last week, said they have had to now start adjusting their budget because of loss of exchange to increase our debt servicing by another 215 billion shillings. So we are saying, if you add those amounts, that this year alone so far, you're talking about 2 trillion going towards debt.
Are we able to trace and see? So this money that has been borrowed over the last 12 months, because we already know legally, constitutionally, Kenya would borrow for development.
Yes.
Okay? Like, we can't see where this money that has been borrowed has gone specifically towards development. From what you're saying, in the books, we don't see projects that are linked directly to that money. Now, this money that has been borrowed essentially is, as you say, going out to pay debt that was there before. Would it be okay, and I say okay very carefully, if the money that was borrowed, then we see that it is actually going towards a particular project here, a particular project there, somewhere else, then would we be able to, be a little bit more comfortable with the situation?
You know the one thing I'm loving about this exercise is that every day I think we get more and more educated. And, as we progressed along the way, we're doing a lot more math. We're doing more and more numbers. CT, and I know you like numbers. We're doing more and more numbers. So we've taken, I'm glad you're talking about the last 1 year. We've taken the last 10 years up to June 2023. All right? And we've said, you know what a deficit is. The deficit is a shortage between our revenue and our expenditure.
Yep.
So we said, okay, what has exactly been our tax revenue? How much have we collected over the last 10 years in tax? How much have we paid? 190. The amount is 13.38 trillion. All right? These are actuals, not estimates.
In 10 years.
Actuals in 10 years, right? To June 2023. Then we took our expenditure. So, what was our development expenditure? You're asking about development. 6 trillion. All right? What are our recurrent expenditure? We removed debt payments. So remove all the debt payments. And you put in our salaries, our pensions, our allowances, all these largesse of government, wanatembea everywhere, flying everywhere, all these things, you put them all there. And on top of that, you add all the county expenditure. All right? For every single county over the last 10 years. The total comes to 14.6 trillion. Sasa CT, you are a good mathematician.
Well, 20.6 trillion.
What is the deficit?
Deficit ni nyingi.
Minus. You do minus.
I've already minused. My friend, there's a 6.6 trillion deficit.
No. How?
If our
revenue is 13.3.
Expenditure
13.38. Right.
Expenditure for development.
Total expenditure.
Yes.
Total without debt.
20.
Total expenditure without debt. Right?
That is development plus recurrent.
Development plus recurrent.
That's 20.6.
Plus, no. Development, you must have taken wrong figures. Development is 6 trillion.
Yes, recurrent.
Right? recurrent expenditure.
14.6.
No. I think I was telling you the total.
Yes.
So development is 6 trillion.
Yes.
In there, you add county expenditure, right, to 6 trillion. You add county expenditure. You add all the allowances, all the salaries, everything. The total,
Is what
inclusive of development,
Is what
comes to 14.6.
14.6.
Yes.
So
All right.
14.6 minus 13 point.
Correct.
That is 1.3.
Correct.
So that's the total deficit.
That's the total deficit. Correct? So how much did we borrow?
Over the last 10 years.
Yes. Shall I give you the figure?
Yes.
7.7. 7.7
Okay.
trillion.
The question is, this 6.6 for development,
Just before you go there,
was it tax financed? All of it? Or some of it?
in fact, that's what I want us to get to. So, if we had a deficit, a shortfall of 1.3, we borrowed 7.7,
Okay.
which means we borrowed 6.4 trillion above what we needed. All right? Above what we needed. Now, that 1.2, you're asking Eric about development. If our 6 trillion, right, was the development expenditure, 1.2, 1.3 would have been about 20% of the development budget. 10% is 6.6.
Yes.
So about 20% of development budget. So 80% of our taxes would have been able to pay
To cover.
to cover development. Are we together? Now, we borrowed 6.4, correct?
Yes.
Above
The deficit.
the deficit. Now, 1.2 is a deficit of 10 years. So 6.4 is the deficit of how many years? Correct.
So there
Like
was
60
need,
years.
there was
No,
need.
like 60 years.
Times 6.
All right? No, 10 years was 1.2.
Right. So
So the 6 is another 60 years.
I'm still stuck on that.
And you
six.
actually,
I'm still stuck at the 6.
6 trillion.
Yeah. The development expenditure that you've calculated, was it all tax financed? That's 6 trillion shillings.
You see, let me put it categorically this way. That if we had a deficit of 1.2, 1.3, you can say that 80% of it was tax financed. 20%
Was borrowed.
was borrowed. 25% was borrowed, which is in keeping with our laws. Are we together? Yes. But we still borrowed an extra 6.5 trillion above what we needed. And that's, Eric, the point I want you to catch.
And where did it go to?
That's the big question. That 6.5 trillion, right, is a deficit of the next 60 years.
what you're saying essentially is that
Yes.
we're not getting out of this hole.
We're not getting out of
If
this
we
hole.
keep paying back this amount of money,
Yeah.
and it's 60 years
Yes.
essentially of
Somebody
debt.
has made sure we have borrowed for the next 60 years. Spent it now. We don't know on what. We can't get out of it unless we address this odious debt. We can't. This is a never-ending problem. It will not end. This pain we are feeling is not going to go away. You know, it's just not going to go away. You're not going to tax your way out of this problem of 60 years forward. We are not.
Let's
That is
take a
a
break.
reality.
Let's take a break. Jimmy Wanjeke is our guest this morning. We are talking about the state of the economy. We've started on that issue. All right, back to that one. Odious debt. We have borrowed this much. Did we spend that much of the borrowings on development expenditure?